Awesome. So the first thing you need to do is you need to develop what we call as your values-driven vision. You know, when you go to events and you hear presenters speak about, you've got to have this vision, you've got a long-term vision, 5-year, 10-year, and to some degree that is absolutely true. You do need to have a vision. But what happens is most presenters and most speakers, they stop at vision. Like they just, reach out, do a vision board, and then go do that, and then just, think about it every day. And there's a little bit more to it. So you also have to understand what your values are. Now, your values are things that you see as a hierarchy, things that are most important to you to least important to you. And until you know exactly what those values are, you can't connect them to your vision. So my first tip is know your values at a very deep level and then connect them to your vision. Now, your vision, it can't be anyone else's vision but your own vision. It has to be yours. It can't be the expectations of your partner or your friends or your family. It has to be yours, because if you're living the version of someone else's vision, when you reach it, you're going to be completely unsatisfied because it doesn't match who you are and what your values are. So you need to match your values and your vision together to make sure that you are living the most authentic version of yourself. The second thing you need to do before we get to habits is remove your resistance. So this removing resistance is the stuff that holds you back: shame, guilt, fear, lack of confidence, not feeling smart enough, or not feeling good enough, or not feeling competent enough in your life. You have to commit to locking eyes with this stuff one-on-one and really looking deep into what is actually holding you back. Because when we draw the wisdom from all of that stuff, you can then stop running the circles. Because what happens in our brain, we run these chemical loops in our brain until we intercept it and go, wait, why am I doing that? And is there a better loop that I can run with this? So you have to lock eyes with the stuff that's holding you back and then create new neural pathways, or habit hack neural pathways, which is what I'm going to get to in a minute. The third one is where we get to then create our heart-centered habits. So if you've got your values and your values-driven vision, and then you've removed all the resistance, now it's time for you to actually get your heart-centered habits. So a habit is something you think you should do, but a heart-centered habit is something that you enjoy the process of doing. Because what ends up happening if we don't enjoy the process, and if we are just throwing out habits left, right, and center and not really thinking about the habits we're doing, what we're doing is creating automatic habits. Those automatic habits will cause you to fail without even thinking about it. In the blink, less than a blink of an eye, your brain will decide that you cannot reach that goal because you don't believe that you can do it. And also you're not going to enjoy the process of doing it. So your brain will be like, we're not doing that. We're not going for that 5K run because we don't like running, because it doesn't match your values, right? So you've got to get your values and remove resistance to running. Why don't you want to run that 5 kilometers? And then you've got to create heart-centered habits around that. The result of doing those 3 things is you'll be able to hack into the super highways in your mind that are already there. They're already there because you've been cultivating them for years and years and years and years and years. They're fast, slippery neural pathways. And if you can hack onto those with these new thoughts that you're having, with your values-driven vision, removing all the resistance around it, and now creating heart-centered habits, you're going to be able to achieve things 5 times faster with 5 times more fulfillment, because that is how we do our heart-centered habits. And the 4th tip is you can't do it alone. You have to build a support team. If you build a support team around you, you're going to be accountable to someone. If you say, I'm going to go for a 5K run, and you're getting up to that point, you've worked out all your resistance and your heart-centered habits, and you've got your values-driven vision and everything, when you are then accountable to someone, you'll actually do it because someone knows you're meant to do it. If no one's watching you, you're like, oh, I'm just going to hit the snooze button and stay in bed. It's really warm. I'm not going to get out of bed today. So you need to have support. You've got to build your team around you. And the 5th tip, and if you take nothing else away from the tips that I've already said, you have to promise yourself, you have to make a real commitment to yourself that you will do everything in your power to master your own mindset, because you've actually got a choice. You can either be a slave to your mindset, or you can master your mindset and manifest your dream life. That is the choices that you have. So if you don't take anything else away from what I just said, take that because that is, you've only got you, and you have to take action. You have to make a decision and take action.